Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right. I am John Palacio.
And I'm Marlene Cuellar, and thank you for joining us this Wednesday morning.
Yes, it is a Wednesday.
It's hump day.
It's hump day. It's a hot day.
That's
but
right.
Nonetheless, we're in a lovely country and we're feeling good.
I know. Yesterday, it was tough to remember how rainy it was over the weekend.
I know, right?
Because it suddenly became so hot.
Yes, and that's true. You see it all over social media. Water running here, water running there. And it became a part of the news for last night. But nonetheless, it's basically not necessarily over with, but at the same time, the heat is back on us. And we just need to know how to manage when it comes to the heat.
We're going to appreciate it for now.
Of course.
But of course, it is Wednesday morning, which
Yes,
means not only is it hump day, and we're going to guide you up to that hill so you can slide on down by the end of the day, it's also the morning after Cake TV Latino, which means we're all a little bit sleepier here today, but definitely worth it.
Definitely worth it. So we might be a little sleepy, but at the same time, we're happy. We're happy for the fact that you enjoyed last night. We're happy for the fact that all the singers were so good last night. We're happy for the fact that it's the day afterward, so we are able to talk about it. Last night was spectacular. We're so glad that everybody was a part of it. We had a few dropouts. We had somebody who was sick. We had somebody who decided, you know what? It is tough being on the stage and having to sing some. It is a tough ordeal. Yeah.
Well, it's a $10,000 prize.
It is a $10,000 prize.
So it's not necessarily a walk in the park to get to that. I think if it was, we'd all be on stage, right? But you do have to have the talent, and you have to be able to survive through the entire season, market yourself to get those votes in.
Yeah, that's true.
And also be able to keep up with your performances. This year's challenge board is proving to be a challenge.
That's right. So the challenge continues again next week. Of course, there'll be the repeat. It's going to be on, I think, tomorrow, Thursday, and then on Sunday again. So we've got these repeats for you. And the best thing about it is, though, if you missed anything, you could always check us out online. You could go on Facebook. It's right there, and you could see exactly what you were looking forward to. That contestant you're following. You do what you've got to do to be a part of it. But KTV Latino, it's just so nice. Let me see what was my favorite song. Oh, there was a song about Garobo. That was my favorite song. Garobo song. Garobolito.
I'm looking for some more interesting song selections.
New songs. Yeah.
Just that I'm still waiting. I feel like it's still a little slow. I always love doing the slow songs.
Week number 2.
We're at home. It's at nighttime. We don't need lullabies. We need some little spice, and so especially with Latino music. But I think that again we're seeing a different range of music, and I do appreciate that. I think they got to work on some stage performance. Some of them have it. Some of them are closer to it. But it's early in the season, and this is why I enjoy the show, because we get to see their growth. I always say that. At the end of this season, when we play back those first performances, even the individual singer themselves is surprised.
But the growth of these contestants is so good, man. And one of the things, Marlene, and I urge for folks to continue to support these people. Support them because you actually build their morale. If you want to see an even better show, it's all on you. Say what song you'd like to hear. Tell them things to make them feel better about themselves. So the performance that they'll eventually belt out will be even better for the next time around. So let's do what we've got to do to cheer on these folks. This year, if you're a Digicel subscriber, you're able to vote. If you're a Smart subscriber, you're able to vote. So there is no reason for you not to cast your vote.
That's right. And remember, voting closes on Sunday at midnight. And don't take the chance of not voting. If you have a favorite, vote for them. That's the only way they stand a chance of being able to progress to the next round. You don't want to have that disappointment of tuning in next Tuesday and say, oh, my favorite is gone. Because that's kind of your fault if you didn't support them.
The judges are there just to enhance how these people are doing their thing, enhance them on their game. The judges aren't there to actually say, you know what, you are the winner. Yes, there's a score, but that's exactly how they feel at that particular time for that particular performance. But these judges are there just to, you know what, you need to work on your connotation, you need to sing from your diaphragm, stop singing from your throat, things like that. That's all they're doing there. The voting, or for these individuals to stay on stage for next week, it's all up to you. So you're the ones to blame if that person who you wanted is not there for next week. You. Vote, digital or smart. Vote.
That's right. And do remember, if you missed the show, it is going to repeat on Thursday night at 8:30 and also at 7 on Sunday night. You can also watch it again on KTV Latino's Facebook page and decide who you want to support and go ahead and send in those text messages. Once again, voting closes on Sunday at midnight.
All right. Well, we need to move on. It was an excellent time last night, but we need to move on, and we've got to say happy birthday. I remember this guy since he was born, and now he's a big boy. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say a big happy birthday to none other than Luis Sosa Jr. Happy birthday to you, buddy. Man, taller than he ain't taller than everybody.
Right.
Happy birthday to you, buddy. It comes from all of us here at Channel 5, all of us here on Open Your Eyes, especially from your mom and dad. Mom of Dad Lewis Sr. We wish you all the very best, buddy.
All right. And remember, if you want to get your loved one a birthday shout out on the show, just go ahead and send us an email or a message on social media, and we may be able to fit you in.
Oh, definitely. And while we spoke about the weather this morning, the professional is on the line. Shania, good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you?
I am okay.
I show you this is one of those mornings you song live. And that's a good thing. So let's check out the general situation. We had some weather earlier in starting on the week. What are we looking forward to for today?
Well, mainly fair weather will prevail across the areas for today and for the rest of the week.
All right. And in the 24-hour forecast?
So skies will be mostly sunny today and partly cloudy tonight with only isolated showers or thunderstorms, except for possibly a few more over the south tonight.
Well, they're never out of it. It's always green and lush in that area because of all the moisture. But nonetheless, what does that say about our temperatures?
So high temperatures today along the coast will be 88 degrees Fahrenheit, 94 inland and 82 in the hills. And low temperatures tonight will be 82 degrees Fahrenheit along coastal areas, 74 inland and 70 in the mountains.
I look at this 94 inland and say to myself, I wonder if they'll be getting any kind of winds today. What we looking forward to with the winds?
Well, overall in the general area, the winds will be from the east and southeast at 10 to 20 knots, and so the sea will be choppy to moderate.
All right. Normally, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is that we check out the weather and see what's going on. Is there anything we should be looking out for in the tropics?
Well, in our area, no. The low pressure system that passed our area is now a trough over the Bay of Campeche, and it has a low chance of developing during the next 2 days. But in the long term, it could possibly have some development, but it is out of our area. And the tropical depression 15 that was near 17.3 north and 21.4 west has become a remnant low. And so it is expected to affect anyone any further. And elsewhere in the North Atlantic, Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next 48 hours.
Excellent, Shania. Thank you. And finally, while we don't have anything to look out for this time, what about our extended forecast?
So for Thursday and Thursday night, it's for similar weather conditions to prevail.
All right, Shania. That was straightforward. I like it. Shania, we want to thank you so very much. Thank you and keep up the good work.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. My goodness. We want to say thanks to all the forecasters and technicians at the National Met Service for their weather update.
That's right. And with that, we're going to get moving into our show for today.
Definitely. We've got 3 wonderful segments. As a matter of fact, segment 1 and 2 will be on juvenile justice system. We know of occurrences that happened actually up in the air, and of course just this past month. And so we're looking forward to this conversation. First and second, the juvenile justice system, challenges and progress.
And then we're going to have a conversation about International Credit Union Day. We'll find out what activities they have planned and how they're going to be celebrating.
All right.
So that's the lineup for today. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll get right into the show. So stay tuned.
With over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes on this lovely Wednesday morning. And we're moving now into our first segment for the morning, the juvenile justice system challenges and progress. Now we've got the folks in to tell us all about it. We've got on set Starla Bradley, who is the executive director of Community Rehabilitation Center, and Maureen Williams, who is the deputy director of the Rehabilitation Center. I'd like to wish you a very pleasant morning and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
That's right.
Loving these colors, we've got to say as well. So let's jump on into it. You know, there's so many things that happen in our country, and we know when it comes to our juvies, how dear to us they are. It's just naturally that as a parent, you will want to take care of your young ones. And I feel that in a country that we've got today, it has to be that way, that everybody take care of the young, because that's how we continue to skyrocket as a country. So let's get on into the juvenile justice system and the work that is being done as we speak.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having us. The juvenile justice system is a parallel system to the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system deals with adults who come in conflict with the law, and so the juvenile justice deals with children who come in conflict with the law. The age of criminal responsibility in Belize is 12. So when we refer to juvenile justice and the clients that we serve, we are really referring to children between the ages of 12 to 17 years of age. Juvenile justice is very important. I know on your show yesterday you had persons talking about CRC at 30.
Yeah.
And so under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, children should be protected from all forms of abuse, neglect, exploitation.
Yeah.
Children who come in conflict with the law are no different. And really and truly, when you consider the backgrounds and circumstances that these children come from, majority of them do come from extremely difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
They themselves are victims of abuse, neglect, violence, and so trauma. And so these things tend to manifest, and then they end up sometimes on the other side of what we call the child protection system, the juvenile justice system.
Yeah.
So not because they commit offenses, that doesn't mean that they stop being children.
Yeah.
Because of their age, their evolving capacities, their development, especially brain development, they cannot be treated the same as adults. Right? So the juvenile justice was set up even before, Belize's juvenile justice system was even before the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The Juvenile Offenders Act actually dates back to, I think it's 1936. Yeah. So all the way back then, Belize as a country recognized that children needed special protection while they interface with the justice system. Right?
Let me just interject there, because I wanted to understand fully what you mean by criminal responsibility, because the age of 12 seems a bit young.
It is. It was originally 9.
What?
And I believe about maybe 12, 13 years ago, Belize lobbied, and it was raised to 12.
Yeah. Is this international standard? Is this keeping up with the convention?
The convention does not necessarily indicate, recommend a specific age, but more older rather than younger. And many countries are moving towards 14, which is something that we would also advocate for. And when you look at the data, you're not really seeing very many 12, 13, or even 14-year-olds committing offenses. It's usually between 15 to 17.
Okay. And so I think one of the things that we really have a hard time understanding is what happens when a child comes in conflict with the law. There's certain protection mechanisms that I think the public knows now, like we won't show their name, we won't say the name, we won't show their face, certain details may not be disclosed, and there seems to be a reason for all of this, but we don't really get to explain why to our viewers. So let's talk about what happens if a child commits any offense. What happens when they come in contact with the system?
Okay. When a child is detained by the police, usually the police would be the first contact with the juvenile justice system. They commit some type of offense, or allegedly commit some type of offense, and then they're picked up by the police. The police would then try to contact the parent or guardian If the parent or guardian is not available, then a justice of the peace. If there's no justice of the peace available, then they usually would call in one of our social workers, who we call community rehabilitation officers, or CROs. And so they are not to interview children without an adult being present, a parent being present, right? Or the social worker. When they're at the police station, they need to be separated from adults.
Yeah.
They need to be kept in a separate area from adults. And really the role of the social worker there is just to make sure that the child understands what is happening, to make sure that they are not further violated in any way as they interface with the system. So that's at the police station.
So a child can be picked up anywhere without the parent's knowledge. And until they get to the police station, that's when they're allowed to contact, or there's attempt to contact the parent.
Yes.
Is this a system that works well?
It has its flaws. Best practice would dictate that if a child is picked up, that right away you try to find the parent, and then the parent would accompany the child to the police station. That doesn't always happen, for whatever reasons. I mean, if they're close by, then sometimes. And then there are those cases where parents will say to the police officers, "I'm not going." You know, so it's not what we want it to be. Yeah. But at the same time, if a child commits an offense or allegedly commits an offense, then the police has an obligation to do their work, yeah? And so the child would be picked up. The child can be detained for 48 hours, just like anybody can be detained for 48 hours before being charged. But if it is that 48 hours has lapsed and for whatever reason they have not been charged, and they will have to let the child go. In terms of the practices, it's not consistent across the country. We've found where in the districts, the CROs are much more likely to be called when a child is picked up, even though they may have found the parent, so the child would have the support of the parent and the CRO. But in Belize City, that does not happen very often.
Okay. So then the parent is called in, and if not the parent, then the justice of the peace. If not the justice of the peace, a member of your staff would go out and bear witness to what is taking place, what charges and whatnot. Now they go through the court system, the family court system. What accommodations are made for them there?
In terms of, well, they would go through the family court system if they're charged with other minors or charged by themselves.
Okay.
In the case where children are charged with adults, then they're generally taken to the magistrate's court. At the family court, the parents or guardian, the social workers, legal representation, those people are entitled to be in the court with the child. At arraignment, that is where the charge is read to the child by the magistrate, and the magistrate has a responsibility to ensure that the child understands that charge. And then they would take a plea. With the CRO, some magistrates will explain to the child what the plea means. If a guilty plea, if it's not guilty, if you're saying guilty with an explanation, those kinds of things would explain so that the child knows what's going on. And the parent. Once that is done, and then a date is set, we call an adjournment date, is set for them to come back. Oftentimes, they're minor offenses, they would be granted bail. In the case of firearm offense, we know that carries mandatory remand, and the process is the same for the child. Depending on the age of the child, they would probably be sent to Wagner's or to the youth hostel, and then the family, if they have the means to do so, may apply for Supreme Court bail after 10 days. Once the adjournment date is set, the child and the family is allowed to leave. The CRO, we always have a social worker at the court. And so they would make contact in a lot of cases, again in Belize City. That would be the first point of contact for some children, because as we've said before, in Belize City, once a parent is there, then there isn't a legal mandate to call anybody else. So oftentimes that's the first point of contact, and that is where we would get preliminary information, contact information, and those kinds of things. And once that is done, then we would reach out to the family after that.
And then the case management pieces come into effect, where yes, you have the court advocacy that the CROs do, but there's also the social work interventions, because juvenile justice, the goal of juvenile justice is really rehabilitation, giving these young persons a second chance and providing them with every opportunity and support to redirect their path. So the focus is definitely on rehabilitation, and the social worker then goes in and does assessments, develops goals with the families, and it's a wide range of issues that can be addressed during that space of time.
What we're seeing and what I'm hearing is basically the process of what occurs when a child commits a crime, or it is alleged that that child commits that crime. What I'm also hearing is that there is some kind of a difference how we deal with them here in the city rather than how we deal with them in the districts. Now, for what we've just explained from the Juvenile Justice Department, is this working for us? And would there be things that we would want to see differently? And I normally say, I'm asking this because there are people out there who are saying right now, it's not really working. I don't want to go because this will occur, or I want to go because I don't trust the system. Is this working for us?
There are definitely challenges. The juvenile justice system is going through many transitions. I think it's a work in progress. I don't think we can ever say we have arrived. In 2014, the government of Belize, it was the first time that they really invested in strengthening the juvenile justice system. Before that, we really just had the youth hostel and boot camp.
We had the hostel and the boot camp, and then in 2014.
In 2014, yes, there was this major investment where we knew we had to strengthen the system. We were kind of going around in circles. Now we have evidence-based interventions. We're able to actually develop plans that look at the risk factors and address the risk factors that these children and their families come with. These risk factors are what lead them into this side of the system. So there was a significant investment at that time. We gained many more CROs because the cases, you really need enough staff to be able to give each case the attention that it needs. We actually now have trained counselors, which we didn't have before. We have to deal with the trauma and the therapeutic aspects of rehabilitation, and that was a gap before. We had significant infrastructure, specifically at the youth hostel. I don't know if you saw what it was before, but it was a hodgepodge of little wooden buildings, not fit for purpose. And under this project, we saw investment in those areas. And so while we have made significant strides, there are still gaps. And there are lots of things that happen outside of the youth hostel, for example, that affect what happens inside the institution. So the gaps that exist would require significant investment of staff, and maybe physical infrastructure, if we were to go that route. But there are other parts of the system that if we were to address more seriously, like prevention, community involvement, parental support, then you wouldn't have this side of the system overwhelmed, if you will.
And that was, I mean, I really want to talk about prevention, but I wanted to know from you directly just what the system is, how a child ends up in the system in the first place. So we got to talk about the hostel, because I think that is perhaps one of the main topics that people have a lot of questions. We saw the fires, we've heard continuous stories of escapes, and we saw the recent issue with the police interacting with an escapee from hostel. And from your perspective, I want you to share with us why it is that it seems that there are numerous or more frequent issues taking place at this child detention center.
Okay. The youth hostel was originally established in the 1960s as a certified institution for children with quote-unquote uncontrollable behavior, right? It evolved over the years into a place where you still have children there who are sent by the courts for status offenses, specifically uncontrollable behavior. But now you have a mixed population because they're also sending children who commit crimes. So criminal offenders are mixed with status offenders.
What kind of crimes? Minor crimes?
All types of crimes. We are trying to progress to a system where best practice indicates that you have to separate by risk.
Okay.
Low, medium, high.
Okay.
Medium and high risk offenders really should not be mixed. High risk really needs separate interventions.
Yeah.
They should not be mixed. In any case, the system that we do have, they are mixed.
Yeah.
So you also have males and females at the youth hostel. I think there's also a misconception. People always hear about the girls. We have males and females. Separated at the facility.
Let me just stick a pin here because I don't want us to lose the opportunity. When you say it's a mixed community and it includes the children who are there for uncontrollable behavior, these are children who have not broken the law.
No, they have not.
So what is an uncontrollable child?
How do we define
that's-
them? Yes.
The parent, because it's the parent that has to petition to the court and stand before the magistrate. The parent is the one who has to convince the magistrate that their child is uncontrollable. Once the magistrate is convinced, then the child is committed to the youth hostel.
Isn't this a dangerous practice? I'm trying to figure out, okay, so I got to be honest because I think parenting is hard and I don't want to diminish.
It is hard.
And teenage years can be notoriously difficult. But if I have a worry that my child is uncontrollable, they don't listen to me, they don't come home the time they should, they're hanging out on the street with people I don't want them to hang out with, and I say, you know what, I'm going to go to the magistrate and get them into hostel so, you know, they can no longer be uncontrollable. But I am essentially sending them into an area with people who are already breaking the law.
Yes.
So how is this productive for a child?
Well, that's one of the things that we are focusing on legal reform to abolish uncontrollable behavior. I mean, the reality is that the youth hostel does work for some children, but it cannot be a one-size-fits-all, or everybody, as the case is right now, everybody can't be sent there. The system has not developed yet to be able to serve all the different subpopulations of this group. In the facility, we have children who require psychiatric treatment. They're there, and they're there because there's nowhere else for them to go. The other ministries have not developed that system yet, right? So when I talk about gaps, those are the types of gaps that we have. And so you have all of these mixed populations in one facility, and so it's challenging. With regard to uncontrollable behavior, it's something that we have challenges with, yes. some children do benefit from the programs at the hostel. They come in, they leave. If they're there for a short period of time, and if they get the level of parental support. But what we are seeing time and time again, and one of the biggest challenges that we're facing at the institution is the lack of parental and community support. A lot of times, these children end up in the facility, especially for uncontrollable behavior, and they languish. Sometimes the family is not conducive to them going back home. Sometimes the family doesn't want to engage. Primarily, what we get primarily are parents saying, here, fix the child. And they don't take time to reflect or consider how their behaviors, how their decisions, how their actions might be contributing or have contributed to the behaviors. And so we end up working with the child and having a difficult time working with the families because the child must change, but the parents don't see where they need to make adjustments as well. And so quite often we have kids who the parents don't want to engage. When we want to take the child out, they've stabilized, they've done the work, it's time for them to leave. The family doesn't want them. Some are orphaned, some don't have mothers and fathers, and sometimes maybe because they have their own challenges with their own children, other extended family aren't always open to taking these children. And there's also that stigma, you know, the kids are, you know, quote unquote bad. And so it's hard for these children to live down the mistakes that they've made. And they're tainted or painted with that one brush and look through that lens. And so we don't have families to send them back to. Extended families aren't always open. And people just don't want to foster teenagers, and especially if they come from the hostel. You know, and yes, we've been hearing lately about lots of incidences, but that's mainly with some of the high-risk children. We have lots of children who pass through the facility who have really done well, who have really left the institution and really made a change in their lives and are doing well. And those are the ones too that we need mentors for, we need homes for, because the longer a child stays, they become frustrated. They languish, they lose hope.
They lose hope,
I mean, that's understandable for anybody. And please, we don't think that the children should be in the youth hostel either. The Ministry of Human Development feels that children should be raised in family settings. That's a last resort.
But most
right?
of you are social workers.
Yes.
So your basis is keeping the family together. But I have to ask, and as honest a response as possible, is it that this institution is under-resourced? That, I mean, because it could, I can clearly hear from what you're saying that the problem is growing faster than we can keep up. You are talking about being able to offer skills training, counseling, constant supervision, education, because these are all children needs, recreation, socialization, separating male and female population, because they are teenagers as well, all in one institution. What do you have, a staff of 500?
We wish. Maybe you can speak to the staff.
Even before we get to that though, for me it's the whole issue of uncontrollable behavior. It is critically important for people to understand that the behaviors that these children come with aren't necessarily abnormal behaviors for teenagers, for adolescents. This is a chaotic time in their lives. Anyway, hormones are raging, you're trying to figure out who you are. And so it's one of those times when things are just crazy. And then when you have children who have had adverse experiences that were never resolved, then it makes it even worse. So the behaviors that parents will talk about, not listening, not wanting to help at home, they upstart, they go out, they drink or they smoke weed. Children will experiment around this age range. They will experiment with drugs, they will experiment with alcohol, they will experiment with sex. So the behaviors are normal behavior for that age range. Where we have to come in is where those behaviors puts that child at risk, either for harm or for them harming somebody else. Then of course we have to get involved. But as Ms. Starla said, sending the child to an institution should be of the last resort, because children do best in their families. Government don't make good parents. They don't.
Well, and children don't belong in institutions.
Yeah.
Even the homes, the children homes. I mean, that's, think of your own childhood. That's what you want for your, if it's been a good one. You don't want to be raised by a supervisor. So, is there? I mean, what I hear from you is, especially with the issue of uncontrollable behavior, and again, I don't want to diminish the challenges that parenting brings, but I also must reinforce that there is a responsibility in being a parent.
Yes.
You are a rehabilitation department, the government-sanctioned rehabilitation department. Is there an intensive parenting, a teen program that if a child comes with uncontrollable behavior, instead of going to the hostel along with people who've committed crimes, that there's intensive work done with just that family unit itself? Is that an alternative that exists?
That happens in some cases. Again, in the districts, a lot of times the CROs are actively involved with the families. So if somebody would make a referral, whether it's from the school or somebody in the community, or even if the parent had gone to the court to make an application, the magistrate would say, all right, you need to work with community rehab, and then let's see what we're going to get out of that. You know, rather than making that determination to send the child to the youth hostel.
But it's voluntary at that point.
You know, but that doesn't always happen. Again, in Belize City, in some cases, we do interface with these children with these voluntary claims. But there have been several cases where the parent would go and make that application, and the child would be committed or remanded to the youth hostel, and that is when we would get involved.
For how long?
It depends. If it's remanded, there could be several remand for 3 months and then 6 months and then that kind of a thing. Committal, the law says it should be there shouldn't be a time frame.
Wait, so remanded, there's a time frame.
Yes.
Committal means I send you there indefinitely?
Yes, and in most cases they will say until you're 18. Can you imagine what that does to a child who is 12 or 13 years old?
Yes.
You know. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to stay there until they're 18, because if the child does the work, the family does what the family needs to do, then we can make that recommendation for the minister to release the child back to the family. So they don't have to stay there till they're 18.
Is this committal only for infractions, or it's also for uncontrollable
It's only
behavior?
for uncontrollable.
No.
Criminal offenses are different.
Yes.
So it's like a parent handing their child over to the
Yes.
state and say, you raise them till they're 18. Okay.
And that is what happens in a lot of cases.
This is an
I know,
eye-opening
it is.
conversation.
I want to
It
respond.
is.
And then just in terms of, you are talking about the responsibility. When a child, when we get voluntary claims, there are some families who are open to doing the work. They will get, you know, they will engage in the counseling and look at parenting and those kinds of things. Not a whole lot of them, but we do have some. But as it stands right now, for those children who are sent to the institution, we have nothing to hold the parents to say you have to go to counseling, you have to go to parenting classes, you have to, you know, be involved.
So
it's
what if
very
in your
easy to abdicate.
investigation of this child's quote-unquote uncontrollable behavior, you recognize that perhaps a part of the behavior pattern that they have is a result of neglect? That's a chargeable offense.
It is.
If it is that on our end we recognize some signs of abuse or neglect, then we would have to refer and work jointly with the Department of Human Services, our sister department, because they're the ones who actually investigate child abuse and neglect. But I wanted to respond to your question. You were asking, I think you were asking about resources. We've come a long way. We do offer a wide range of programs at the facility. We do have agriculture, woodwork, there's a sewing program and a hospitality program. We're trying to strengthen the skills-based programs. There's also literacy. So every child that comes in leaves a bit better off than they came in terms of literacy. There's definitely the recreational sports and all of those. So there's a program. There's a day program, there's weekend programming, and there are night programs. We do have challenges in terms of staff. Sometimes it's difficult.
What's the size of the staff?
On each, we have the male and the female dorm. So we try to have at least 3 persons on each dorm per shift.
And how many children are in the
It varies.
institution on average?
On average, about 50.
50 male and female?
Yes, combined.
Okay.
Sometimes it goes up. There are times when it's low. The challenge we have right now is recruiting staff and retaining staff. The approach that we use is a hands-off approach. We don't tolerate violence within. So culturally, that's a shift. You know, how these kids sometimes can be very in your face, and learning how to calm a situation and not react and not take things personally. Sometimes it's hard when these children, might be acting out. The distance or the location of the youth hostel also presents a challenge because we're all the way up there at mile 21. So there's that commute and the costs incurred there. Sometimes staff really don't, they think they might like to work there, they like to work with young people, but when they get there, it's a whole different ball game. And so they decide, you know what, this really isn't for me. And so the staff turnover has been a challenge. And then too, sometimes
Are they adequately trained too to work with this population?
Well, the staff at the hostel, we have ongoing training, ongoing. But how receptive people are, how well they receive and apply what's being given to them is always another issue. The salaries are pretty low as well, and so that presents its own challenge.
It's not attractive to work there.
No, it's not. But so we're trying, and it's a continuous improvement. But there are gaps that the Ministry of Human Development cannot fill or should not fill. Certain expertise that is required, like especially when it comes to psychiatric issues. That's a mental health issue. So we're working with the Ministry of Health to try to see how we can start to develop those types of services more for these children, because it looks like it's not working because it isn't. There are gaps that we cannot fill alone, right? We need other stakeholders to partner with us to strengthen the system.
Definitely.
Right?
But at the same time, there must be a buy into it. Why would I want to be a part of it when I know for a fact that all the flaws or what could be the negative effect of me wanting to even be there? So I think that the buying process must be strong. One of the things I wanted to touch on that you spoke about is the fact that there are programs for the children. There are programs, agricultural programs. As a matter of fact, we had Mr. Castillo sitting down with us, talking about programs that they're doing there, sewing. Now, I think this is one of the best buy-ins for the parents. I think that if we're supposed to show what these children are actually capable of doing when it comes to their physical aspect, their mental aspect, and trying to put these things together, parents will want to come out because this is when they see that, my child is actually making a stride, making a progress. How are we attacking this particular aspect of having to deal with the parent? Probably the child might tell you, that's not me, that's my parents there. But at the same time, they're not coming. What are the conversations there in terms of dealing with the family?
Dealing with the family is a constant work in progress. And for example, you're saying the buy-in, showcasing what
Show
these
them what the kids can do.
What they're able to do, what
there
they're
are
capable of
family days and open days, but you can count the parents who do come. I think it's culturally too. You'll have parents coming all the way from Punta Gorda to come and see their child and see what their child is doing. But Belize City, which is closest, they are the ones with the least participation. So the dynamics are just very different depending on where they come from, and the engagement is much harder in Belize City.
Okay, let me just clarify something here. You said you have an average population of about 50, male and female. Are there more males than females?
It varies sometimes, yeah.
It used to be
Okay, and now it's
where we had more males than females.
Okay.
That
But
is no
now-
longer the case.
okay. So they're fairly close in terms of
And sometimes we
females-
have more females than males.
But the
So it
females are,
varies.
more females are there for uncontrollable behavior rather than criminal
well,
offenses.
that's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah.
What percentage, if you were to give me an average, of children are there for uncontrollable behavior? And I want to be clear: uncontrollable behavior means this child has not committed any crime. What percentage is there for that reason?
Right now, what about 60-40, you would say?
Yeah. So the majority are there for uncontrollable behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. Male and female.
What happens is that the males, there's a high risk facility at
Yeah.
the prison. There's the Wagner's
Yes,
Youth
that's
facility.
Yeah.
So some of the males also go there,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And with our males, we also have unaccompanied minors. These are the children.
These
who
are children
have
who come
crossed-
across the border
Oh.
without the parent, sometimes with a other family member. They get charged for an immigration offense, and that
And they
child
go-
then
The child
goes to
comes.
hostel
Yes.
with people who've committed crimes
Right.
or being
Again,
deemed by their parents as
In
uncontrollable.
the absence of any other program or system, that's where we find ourselves right now.
So we're just mixing up a lot of children
Yeah.
with a lot of different vulnerabilities in one location.
Well,
There's a lot of food for thought here. And you know what we'll do? We'll take a break, we'll regroup, and we'll continue this conversation. We're talking about children who come in conflict with the law and children, the juvenile justice system. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back in a few. Please stay tuned. are back, and if you're just joining us, we are having a conversation in understanding the challenges and the progress that has been made in our juvenile justice system in Belize. We have with us two representatives of the Community Rehabilitation Department, the Executive Director, Starla Bradley, and the Deputy Director, Maureen Williams. Ladies, you left us on a sobering thought, considering the fact that the population at the hostel is currently a mix of people, of children, to be clear, who've not committed any offense, children who perhaps got caught coming across the border, usually fleeing something in their own country, and also children who have come in contact with the law, all in one institution. This is only part of the work that the Community Rehabilitation Department does. And I think my question is, given the experience that you have with the children that are in the institutions, you have a profile. You kind of know what the indicators are that leads a child into this institution. Can we start there? Because I think we see children in the hostel and we say, oh, you know, there must be bad picnic. But what are they coming with? What are the standard issues? A 16-year-old, if we watch our own children, not all of them end up in institutions. No. Something had to have happened.
The majority of the children coming into an institution, such as the youth hostel, come with histories of trauma. The girls, a lot of them have been sexually abused, boys as well. They come from homes that experience a lot of domestic violence. A lot of these children are left to fend for themselves, unsupervised, if you will. They come from very difficult circumstances. So the family support or the family environment does contribute significantly to the behaviors that end up manifesting during adolescence.
And what type of support can you offer? You said you're currently working with the Ministry of Health to get support for them.
Yes, there are some children who once are counselors, because we have a counseling team of qualified individuals working with the ministry, and they go into the institutions to provide services, and they do assessments, and once they see certain issues that might require a psychiatric evaluation, then a referral is made, and that's where we partner with the Ministry of Health, and they bring in their psychiatrists and they do evaluations. Some of the children need to be medicated. We've had instances where we've worked with the court and the Ministry of Health to have children placed in a hospital setting because they need to be stabilized because of mental health issues. But majority of the children, once they receive the treatment that they need and they stabilize and they remain on their medication, they function well. They can focus on other areas of their lives, right? And yes, the counseling team does work diligently with these children, and they also try to do sessions with the families as well. This is a work in progress.
Is there any, or are there any classroom settings for these children at the youth hostel? I know of success stories from back in the day, whereby a friend of mine, now with a master's degree and working in the government system, so I know that it is, or it can be successful. Talk to us about the classroom settings there at the youth hostel.
We do have we have classrooms, we have a computer lab, because some of the children are doing what's called CALS, Computer Aided Literacy Program, because they're not quite at the point where they should be academically. And so that software allows them to work at their level and at their pace. We do have children who do online high school with Kaina online.
Wow.
And then we have children though who have to be worked with on a real one-on-one.
Yes.
Basically, we're struggling in that regard, simply because we don't have the number of teachers that we would require to give them the kind of individualized service that they would need. Because can you think of a child who is 16 years old and cannot write his name, yeah, then that child, you have to work with that child on his own, because you have to think about where he is developmentally. You can't put him with somebody else because there is a sense of shame.
Yeah, the
those kinds of-
self-esteem issues
Right.
alone.
So you need one person to
Working
do
along
some
that.
work with that child. When our population is high, then we don't have the wherewithal to provide the levels of services that each child would need. But as it stands right now, we do have 3 classrooms, actual classroom settings, the computer lab. There is a hospitality building. We share resources with the Belize Youth Challenge program.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they have a woodwork shop. The children, some of the children from Youth Hostel would go over there to do some of the work. And
Yeah.
then we do have our agriculture pieces as well.
And it's important also to mention that some of the children are integrated into the regular school setting.
Okay.
There we
So
go.
as much as possible, that's the first option. Once the child is behaviorally able enough to attend school in a regular school in Belize City, we send them. So we do have
So
a
you
few.
will enroll them even if they're not enrolled too? Because sometimes
Yes,
they...
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
All right.
That's one of the key things, trying to get them back into some type of educational program, whether it's mainstream high school or a skills training program
Yeah.
or something technical or vocational. So we do have some residents right now going to high school in Belize City, and they come back to the hostel in the evening and they go back again in the morning.
John mentioned, I think, what is a critical point, which is he spoke of one person that he knew who was a success. How do you measure your success rate of the institution?
You don't always see it right away, right? But if we're able to reunify a family or find a child some safe place, whether it's with a host family or even if it's independent living and they're functioning on their own, what we try to do is build resilience, right? Given the realities that they come with and the realities that they, will face in the future, we try to build resilience. So it's seeing that they're not coming in over and over, and even if they do, because some do, until they stabilize, our doors are always open.
So what you're saying is the return of a child to the hostel is typical behavior?
For some.
Yeah, and it depends. I mean, it depends on how they came in the first instance, because sometimes a child would come in for a criminal offense and would be sentenced. Now, ordinarily what would happen, if a child is sentenced, it would be 6 months. And after 6 months, he or she leaves. But we know that that child is not ready and the family is not ready. So oftentimes, all right, it's likely that this one is going to come back and maybe needs to come back for some more work.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes we have where the child will come in and is at a really hard place, but for whatever reason, the parent will decide, I will take my child. And the child is not ready,
What type of tracking takes place after a child comes out of hostel?
Aftercare should be a minimum of a year. We have to admit that it's weak. It's not quite where it needs to be yet. For several reasons. I think one, the caseloads are high.
So what, you hand it over to Human Services and then
No,
they do it, or you
we
have
keep
your own?
them.
CROs
We
continue
keep
with
them.
the case.
So the CRO follows that child throughout. Sometimes what will happen is that once a child, particularly if it was a criminal offense, once a child leaves, because most of our children don't want to be there. It's rare when you will get a child who will say, send me, Your Honor. Most of them don't want to be there. So when they leave, a lot of times they will say to you, I don't want to have nothing to do with you. Stay away. It's like I've done my time. Stay away. So you're hoping that we've developed a relationship in such a way that they see the benefit of engaging.
Of course.
You know. But in terms of, we were talking about success. Success comes in all different forms. And it's not always the ones who will go and will make it big. But you have the ones who, you know, at one point made horrible decisions, very impulsive and whatever. But you get them to the point where they will come in before they make one of the decisions that they would have made before.
Yeah.
They can come to you and say,
Yeah.
look, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And do that consistently. That's success for us.
Yeah.
Because that is a child
When
who
they
could
change their
very
behavior,
well
yeah.
have
Right.
come back into the system or perhaps gone on to prison.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I was going to ask that question. Is there any cross-reference data as to how many children went to hostel and then
Ended
entered the
up in
prison
prison.
system?
I don't know that. I'm sure we can track it.
Yeah.
Because we do have a database. The ministry has a
Yeah.
database system that we use for case management, and so I think we can pull
Yeah.
the numbers for those kinds of things.
It would just be interesting to note, you know, to be able to understand if there is a connection there or what type of connection exists.
I think if we get to the point we're talking about progress and we do have these tools that we can use to look at the children who are likely to reoffend.
Yeah.
If we can get to the point where all the pieces are working together and the way it should, then it is my belief, and I'm speaking as Maureen Williams, social worker, that if we're doing it right, then we shouldn't have a whole lot of those kinds of transitions.
Yeah.
Because then from the onset, you would have identified those children who are high risk,
Yeah.
and they would not have been placed at the hostel from the very beginning.
Yeah.
They would have gone to wherever.
Yeah.
And also understanding that we've talked about not having enough layers in the system. So we're not saying that everybody who shouldn't be at the hostel should be at Colby.
Yeah.
Perhaps, well, there needs to be something in between. But if we can identify those kinds of things and put those things
In place.
in place.
Yeah, I heard that very early on. You're talking about categorizing the children based on the risks that are associated instead of having everybody all in one. I don't want to lose the essence of what is happening in this country as well. And there are people watching who've had loved ones murdered by children. And I'm sure they're just watching saying we're having a whole lot of sympathy, but they don't have sympathy about taking away somebody's life.
Yeah.
We've seen the culture of gangs now move to recruit children younger and younger. At first they were 17, 16, now they're even younger than that.
Yes.
Talk to me about, because you also do preventative work. What do you do to stymie this issue that we're seeing? We're seeing 15-year-olds, you know, walking in, armed robbery, cameras exposing faces. What do we do to try to stop them from even getting to that point? And once they are, how do we get them to change their life after that?
Well, let's start with once they are.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to help them to redirect their path because quite often the gang culture, once you're in, and depending on how far you're in, you can't, it's not so easy to get out.
It's not so easy.
Not so easy. So that's a challenge there. But it has to start from much earlier on. Looking at basic needs. The prevention work has to do with starting with looking at basic needs. Are our families okay? Are they able to meet the basic needs of their members? And quite often that's the issue, they're not. And so maybe the parent is a single parent and has to work. They don't want to leave their children unsupervised, but there might not be enough community support or extended family there to kind of help out. So these families are stressed as well, right? But when it comes to children who are committing the more serious offenses, I know that we are hearing about them more and more, but still, the data indicates that these are still the minority.
Yeah.
Right? Majority of children who come in conflict with the law are not coming in conflict for murder, attempted murder, and issues like that. They're not. But you do have.
But they do progress. They start with, well, what used to be a weed charge or a little, thief a chain. And then they move up to some of the more serious crimes.
Depending on how involved they become, probably with the gangs, especially in Belize City, and now we're seeing some of this spilling over into other districts as well. But the juvenile justice system does recognize that the young person should be held accountable. If a young person has committed an offense, he or she should be held accountable. They need to understand that there are consequences. Our role is just to make sure that they understand the process. It's not to get them off. It's not a slap on the wrist. It's not that. And we understand the difficulties that families who've experienced loss because of because of a minor committing a serious offense. That is difficult for them as well. But that is our role, and we have to do our best to make sure that this young person is rehabilitated, because they will eventually come back out, and then what? So that's why I said the goal of the juvenile justice system is rehabilitation, because the probability of a young person rehabilitating is much higher than with adult.
I also want to gauge the success of the work that is being done by the department, and I'm saying this because there used to be, then we are right now, and then we are going forward. Are things getting much more difficult for you? And this is how I'm gauging, because we're out there, we're advocating, we're out there, we're working with these children, and we're out there knowing that we're trying to make progress. We're trying to make that, we're trying to strive for excellence in the department. Where were we? Where are we now? And where do we want to go? Are things difficult?
Things are very difficult.
Or getting difficult?
They're difficult.
They're difficult.
They're difficult. I mean, the issues are so much more
than what it used
before. To be. Because I can remember when the youth hostel was on Dolphin Street, where Maud Williams is now. It was right there in the community. Everybody went to school within the community. The community came in. They had baseball team, they had cricket team, they had a gym that people used. And so the involvement was there. Was there. Where we are now has its advantages, but it also has its challenges. There are disadvantages to it being where it is now. But in terms of the issues that we're facing now, we are finding more children with mental health issues, the children who are gang involved, the children with substance abuse issues. We're just finding so much more, and then less involvement from the community, from parents, from extended family members, from the education system, the healthcare system. So it's harder all around. It's not to say that we don't keep trying. We have to.
We have to keep
there
trying.
Isn't a choice. We have to keep trying, because these are our children. And the fact of the matter, whether we want to accept it or not, these children are us. They are a manifestation of what we have become or what we are becoming, whether we like it or not.
Right.
Because what we are seeing is not human development not doing. It's what we're all not doing. Or we can't do, for whatever the reasons. Families not being able to meet their basic needs, the education system not picking up the children who have learning issues or whatever, the healthcare system not picking up the children with developmental delays early enough, not picking up the children with mental health issues early enough, the amount of trauma that the children have experienced, and not having the pool of technical expertise, enough of them to be able to address these issues. While we have some people in the city, in a lot of the districts, there aren't anybody to be able to help to address these kinds of things. So this isn't just a human development thing, this is a Belize thing. Yeah. All of us have to be involved. We don't have a magic wand. I've been at this for 30 years. And it's still a work in progress for me. It's never going to change because we're dealing with people. We're dynamic, things change. You know, we're no longer where we used to take care of each other. Where it used to be about the community or the village raising the children. You know, that is no longer where we are. Maybe we need to get back to that, but that is no longer where we are. And so we're struggling because we have these myriad of issues. It has to be a systems approach. And the system is only as strong as the weakest. What was that show? The Weakest Link?
Yeah, the weakest.
Yeah, you know.
You know, I think what you said is so powerful, and I think I've said many times on the show that we as a society have a hard time looking in the mirror. We do not want to see what is there, and we hear the challenges at Hostel, and I think you've really shed some light on what it's like to work in that environment. And I think of resources, but then I also know, having conversation with Human Services, they have more caseload than any social worker should have, and they also need more resources. So really going back to prevention, it has to start in the home, and it has to start in that community itself, that the children don't need Human Services and don't need to go to Hostel.
That would be the ideal juvenile justice system, where the focus is on prevention and diversion, and we don't need hostels, and we work ourselves out of a job. You know.
But you do have preventative programs. That's what I'm getting at. And that's what we have focused on, the work that you're doing at Hostel. The Community Rehabilitation Department has other units as well.
Yes, we're much more than the youth hostel. The Community Rehabilitation Department is one of the 3 major departments under the Ministry of Human Development. We do have the Court and Case Management Services unit. That's the unit that has the CROs countrywide. We provide services to hundreds of young people countrywide who are not in institutions. And that unit, we focus heavily on life skills. Sometimes the court would mandate young persons to participate in our SKIES program, which is a specialized life skills program. We also have a new diversion program that we're piloting with the police department and the judiciary, in which the child, for minor offenses, instead of being formally charged, they're redirected into psychosocial support programs. Right? And there's the counseling services unit, where we have the Belize City Community Counseling Center, located on Freetown Road, where anybody in the community who needs,
top floor of where Ben is, free counseling services.
Counseling services by qualified and professional individuals. And we also try to, we're providing some services in Dangriga, Cayo, Belmopan right now. We have the Conscious Youth Development Program, with CYDP, which also comes under this department, and that's the specialized gang unit, and they try to do violence interruption with gang-involved youth. We have, of course, the Youth Hostel, which we spoke at length about, and we also have the Belize Youth Challenge program, which is another residential program, but it's very different from the Youth Hostel. It sits right across the road, but it's very different. It's a voluntary program that integrates psychosocial and social work practices with the discipline coming from the military side, and it's a joint program being implemented by the Ministry of Human Development and the Ministry of National Security. It's a 1-year residential phase, and then a 10-month residential phase, and then a 1-year aftercare
Yeah.
All right, and we're in our third cohort right now.
And that's mirroring a program, I think, in the States too,
The
right?
Louisiana
Louisiana.
Challenge.
Yeah.
And they've made the Louisiana National Guard have recently made, I think it was their third visit. They make several trips to provide support. And they also support us with training. 2 cohorts of our cadre, our soldiers who work directly with the kids because you cannot use that hard approach. They have participated in trainings in Louisiana to learn how to engage these young persons. And finally, the last unit coming very, very soon, which we're very excited about, is the hub. You probably know it as the Lake Independence Resource Center on Chatham Street.
Okay.
We are soon to launch, and we're very excited about that. That is what we've wanted for years, and that will be the hub of our prevention work.
Excellent.
Okay.
So that's a whole nother show.
Yeah. I've been seeing the vacancy notices for the hub too. So you're looking for a wide array of people to offer support services.
Yes, it's a wide range of.
So it'll be a youth center.
Youth and family, because we'll also have programs for seniors, for parents.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes.
It's a lovely building going up there indeed.
So ladies, let's close off with some advice. You know, there are parents out there, I think, I've always maintained, I think fundamentally, every parent wants the best for their child. They don't want them in hospital, they don't want them in prison. And even if they're not good at parenting, they still want the best for their children. From your experience and from what you've seen, what do we need to do differently in the community, in the homes, to prevent children coming in conflict with the law?
I think a lady I met many years ago gave a colleague and I some posters, and they all had African proverbs. And one of them says, "The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people." So we have got to work together for the best interest of our children. If this is going to work, we are saying that these children are our future. We have got to work together. Communities, neighborhoods need to come together. We were talking about unsupervised children and parents having to go to work, not wanting to leave their children, but we have to put food on the table, we have to pay the rent and the light and that kind of thing. There is nothing wrong with people getting together, 3 or 4 women on the street, and looking after each other's children. If I'm going to be home, then I can take my neighbor's children for that 2 or 3 hours before she comes home. Help with homework, you know. Just the little things I think we need to get back to build the kinds of support that we need to build around our children. It's okay to ask for help. I know people have some issues, pride and those kinds of things, but it's okay to ask for help. In the case of our department, children come when they're already manifesting some behaviors. But we need parents to be actively involved because these are your children. And no matter what the situation is at home, how bad it is, children want to be with their parents.
They do.
You know? And if we work together, we can make that happen more often than not.
And at the community level, we all need to play a part in raising our children and taking care of our children. If the community is more involved, you're strengthening that safety net around these children. There are opportunities for people to come in and mentor. And we do need mentors. We need volunteers to help with tutoring. We need persons to give these kids a chance to open their homes, even if it's for a weekend or over the holidays, just so that they don't remain in the institution. You know, just give them a chance, be open to them. And I think that's the only way, if we work together, we'll be able to address this issue.
All right.
Well, mind-blowing discussion, but we want to thank you so very much for coming in to make that discussion with us. We know for a fact that we've touched a lot of families, so we wish you all the very best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll be having representatives of the Belize Credit Union League to discuss International Credit Union Day. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
With over 100
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving now into our final discussion for the morning. And it's actually the Belize Credit Union League and their International Credit Union Day. Does this mean that they'll be giving loans and whatever you like? Stay tuned for the conversation. Actually, we've got on set with us Elvis Canole, who is the head office manager at St. Francis Xavier Credit Union. That's in Corozal, right?
Yes.
All right, so there we go. We also have with us Emery Young, who is a senior operations officer as well at St. Martin's Credit Union.
Yeah.
All right, who's that? All right, that's the guy all the way in the corner. And Lindbergh Smith, of course, business development officer, Belize Credit Union League. Guys, good morning, and it's so nice to have you in.
Good morning.
So Credit Union Day, International Credit Union Day, that simply says that things are getting easier, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Things that happen.
So Lindbergh, let's start with you, the Belize Credit Union League. Talk to us about the work that is being done as we speak.
Well, it's not only the league; it's the league and its affiliates, but the movement is growing.
Okay.
And it's a global thing. It's not just us in Belize; it's credit union across the globe that is celebrating. But it's very interesting how credit union started. And credit union started a long time ago.
Okay.
And it started off a simple idea where people thought, guess what? If we could pool our own resources together to lend each other, guess what? That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And why? And it's from that simple cooperative spirit or philosophy that the credit union movement actually began. And that was in perhaps the early 19th century Europe.
Wow.
So it was way back then. But the first credit union actually started after Germany went through some hardships, devastation from famine and crop failure. And that was in 1846, 1847. And during that time, the first credit union was born.
So basically, they are syndicate together.
Right. So and it becomes more formalized.
Yeah.
And people start to see, wow, this thing is flourishing. This thing becoming vibrant.
Yeah.
And guess what? It started to spread west, North America, and all of that. And then eventually, people realize, wow, this thing will become very popular. It's people helping people, and that's how the philosophy of people helping people came along. And so because that's how it started. If we could maybe. There are always challenges or barriers to get into the corporate financial institutions.
Of course,
and so credit unions started in that kind of way to say, how can we help the common man?
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And eventually, as the movement began to grow, and it becomes a very popular thing, credit union members across the world say, you know what? Why not put aside a day where we can celebrate our challenges, our successes, the impact we have made over the years. And that's why today we're celebrating the 71st anniversary of International Credit.
71st?
Yep.
Of the credit union movement.
Of the credit union movement globally.
Wow.
Globally.
Now, it's always important, I think, because for people, the credit union becomes just another financial institution, but it was meant to be different from the onset. So let's talk about what the difference was and how it's still maintained in today's financial environment.
Okay, want me to take that?
Whoever.
Well,
I would like to chip in.
All right.
The credit union is a movement of people helping people.
That's right.
Back in the days, the financial system was locked to a certain culture or people. Or class, I would say. So the hardworking people, the low-class people, I would say, they had to pull their resources and make their own savings so that they could borrow. That has held up to today. The movement began with interest rates of 1% on the reducing balance. That has held up from the inception until today.
Yeah.
So
1%.
1% is across the board in Belize, I can say, and that's working. So from the onset, we have been providing our members with the lowest interest rate in the market.
There's certain principles I think that people have come to expect from a credit union. One is low interest. Secondly is the fact that it's owned by members. You're a member and not a client. Also, looking at the fact that there is a heavy emphasis on savings. Yes. Is this across the board, and is that easy to do, especially in these financial times in our country?
Well, it's something pretty easy to do once you get yourself in the rhythm of doing things.
Yeah,
but most people in Belize, we're accustomed to just getting $100 in your hand and spending it.
Yeah.
But if you get yourself accustomed to it, you'll definitely get used to saving and it won't affect your budget. For example, when you get paid, you have income tax coming out of your pay. If you might have a dog or so, you have to buy dog food. You have your utilities. You can't go a day without pay BEL because your light will get cut out. So these are certain expenses that you ensure that is covered every month because you know you need to have it.
These are must expenses.
It's must expenses. Yes. And it's the same way we need to look towards savings. So when you go into a bank and they tell you, oh, $275 is to pay your loan. When you come at St. Martin's Credit Union, we'll tell you $275 is to pay a loan, but $25 from that $275 will be going towards your shares.
Your shares,
right? Yeah. And the same way you'll have these bills coming up. Worst case, your child is at school and have a little accident and need to go to the hospital. You could go in and access the same savings that you have in your account, no?
Yeah.
So it's very easy to manage once you get into the habit of contributing towards the shares. And you don't have to start with $100 every month. You can start with something very basic. For example, you start with $5 this week. At the end of the month, you might notice, okay, I have $5 more left over. Next month, you put $10 towards it. And the more you increase it, the more it will benefit you at the end of the day. So most people, by the time you end up paying your loan at a credit union, your loan is paid and your savings have increased.
Yeah.
So those are some of the factors that members really appreciate about the credit union.
And I just want to add the simple fact of a piggy bank. I use that concept at home. Every payday, I take some coins and I drop it in that piggy bank. And credit unions across the country always giving away piggy banks at their events or fairs. Drop your 5 cents, 1 cent, 10 cents, shilling, whatever you're dropping in that piggy bank. At one day, the bank becomes full. That's your
move it on.
Move it on. You pull it again. You
so
move
the
it
teller
on.
now roll the eye when you go.
But the concept of
But I
saving,
know it's putting something aside. So let's talk about the movement of credit unions in Belize. Are we growing? Are we seeing more members? I know some of you have branched off into different districts as well. Tell me what's happening.
Well, the movement is growing indeed.
Yeah.
Today we can say the movement is 9 credit unions strong, and all are under the umbrella of the Credit Union League.
Yeah.
We have 2 closed credit unions, which is Spanish Lookout Credit Union and Blue Creek Credit Union, and all other credit unions are open to the general public.
Okay.
So, and we have a few credit unions that have branches, like for example, St. Francis, they have 4 branches. Corozal.
Where are you?
Corozal, we're in Sarteneja, San Pedro, and Kikoker.
Okay.
Yeah.
St. John's, again, another credit union with 4 branches. North side, right here on the Northern Highway, their main branch in Bashra, Belmopan, and Dangriga. And
St. Martin's, we opened, last year we opened our Benque Viejo office. So that has been operating a little over a year and doing very good in the community.
So, and we have HRCU, a branch now in Independence.
Okay.
So the movement is growing. There might be minimal growth in some areas, but still, like, we're all in one market competing for the same members. So it's what we need to do as credit union is to continue the education, continue to that credit union difference, because it means something. It means something. And Marlene touched something earlier, which I want to come back to earlier. It's not just the low interest. It's not just your member owned, but it's the fact that credit unions are the only financial institution in Belize that gives you back rebate and gives you back dividends on your savings. The only financial institution. So the amount you save over the years determine how much you get back. And that's so, and that again, that lives that kind of embedded in the philosophy of people helping people. Because the idea of it's wealth creation, it's me helping you it's credit unions helping to put you in a better financial position, and that's how the wealth creation idea was born too. Because we have to realize that you just don't do banking because you want to do banking. You want to increase your status, you want to increase your financial position.
Of course.
And that's how credit union look at their members. How can I put you in a better position?
Yeah, and one of the things that's coming on stream is actually a credit balance. So, and I think this is definitely a good way to educate the public on, you need to make sure that you've got a good credit balance in the event you need to get something that's going on.
Well, I was going to go along those lines. I think, every time you explain the benefits of being a member of a credit union, it seems so logical as a great option.
Yeah.
But I suppose where you face the most competition is that the commercial banks perhaps make it a bit easier for some people to access loans. And that's because you're very stringent about what people can afford. Can you talk about how you balance this out and where there's a benefit in being able to access finance through the credit union versus other institutions?
Mm-hmm. Well, recently we've been giving the banks a run for their money.
Okay.
And it's evident because our numbers keep going up. I've attended most of the AGMs for credit unions this year. And when you look at all the loan portfolio, all of them increased from last year by the millions, right? Wow. And that's for all credit unions. So we are giving the banks a run for their money. For St. Martin's, for example, we've recently rolled out our home mortgage program, right? And
home mortgage
program. Okay. This is being introduced to the membership at a rate of 7.99%, where you can have flexible payments stretch over a period of 25 years.
Cool.
Now, you would pay a huge amount of money when it comes to legal fees, for example, at a bank. But here at the credit union, we have the legal fees significantly reduced for you, right? So these are cost-saving areas that the members, they focus on and they bring over the business. So it's not all that the banks are in control. The credit unions are rolling out programs that are making us stronger in the market. For example, St. John's rolled out their home project as well. So I guess other credit unions will be focusing on this road, making it more affordable for members to acquire homes. And let's say a teacher, for example, with the savings factor involved, most people, if you notice how they operate at a bank, some people collect their gratuity, and when they collect their gratuity, that is not vacation money to Jamaica, That is money that they'll use to pay off a mortgage or pay off their debt. But members are seeing, man, if I come into St. Martin's and I get a reasonable rate of 7.99%, and when I get my gratuity, I don't really have to touch it because I'll have savings based on my contribution. We're giving the banks a run for their money. Trust me.
You also have specialized products too.
Yes,
so like
definitely.
with St. Francis being in the north, the agricultural sector relies a lot on the credit unions up there.
Very much. I would like to comment on the agriculture and the way the customers or members sees the credit union movement. Before, we weren't competition for the banks. But today, the bank sees us as competitors. Why? Because a lot of our members understands better the financial system. Interest rate is a factor for the agriculture. At our credit union, we have special programs, especially for the cane farming industry, whereby we, through the league, and money is coming for the caneros, and they come at a better interest rate. So those are some of the resilience that we have through the league, because the monies come through the league and diverted to specific agriculture sectors.
Yeah, and to add to that, currently, well, what we have right now, we have a project through IDB and Global Affairs Canada, IDB Lab and Global Affairs Canada, which is entitled the EcoMicro product, and that's across the Caribbean.
Okay.
But specifically for Belize, this project that we're currently involved in is a program to build the climate resilience of farmers and fisher folks across Belize. So it's looking at how we can strengthen what they're currently doing to ensure that, guess what, the climatic conditions don't impact as you have seen recently. And so that is an entire project by itself that is now where in early as next year, you will be hearing credit unions going green. At this point, we have 2 credit unions joining that program, which is St. Francis and TTCU, Toledo Teachers Credit Union in Punta Gorda. And so they will be going green.
What does that mean?
And this will be the first time credit union will be offering green microfinance in Belize, where farmers and fisher folks will be having access to low income green finance to boost what they're currently doing and to ensure that their livelihoods is sustainable for years to come. And so that's something big for us right now. And another thing the movement is also doing to even make it more attractive to members generally is we are about to go live with the national payment system as early as next year. So as Jan is supposed, if everything keeps according to plan, it should be January go live. And that is where now members will be able to do inter-credit union transfer and from a credit union to a bank.
I was going to ask that. That was my exact question, because we know that the credit unions, and I'm not sure I understand why it's been a delay, but they haven't been able to use the APSS system through central bank, which is what allows us to pretty much sit here and send money to all the different banks.
Exactly.
And people who use different institutions have found it very convenient. So now, January, you're going to be on board.
Yes, and the reason for the delay was because there has to have been infrastructural development and investment to ensure that there's a smooth transition when you do business.
That's great.
And so we want to make it as convenient for our members as possible and to ensure that our credit union or affiliates have that kind of smooth business flow. And so that's what the league has been doing to ensure that things like that comes alive.
Yeah.
With all of this progress, how do you celebrate International Credit Union Day?
It's a lot of celebration,
First of all, you have to get something free, like a party bag, right?
Well, at St. Martin's Credit Union, we have our usual membership appreciation, right? And that will be on Thursday, International Credit Union Day tomorrow. So all members can come into the credit union, get yourself a nice treat. We'll also be having some games and activities, but I don't want to get into the games because I want members to go in and see these games, right? Because you'll also be winning some prizes as we do whenever we have our membership appreciation. What we decided to do this year specifically to celebrate with the community is we partnered with the Belize Police Department San Ignacio branch. And we'll be making a donation of a motorcycle to the police department. There was a young man who was recently killed in Sokots. We had some spike of crime in Santa Elena. So we're figuring one more motorcycle and one more policeman. That will mean one more school being patrolled.
Of course.
One more neighborhood being safer, right? In discussing with Mr. Jamot, the officer commanding San Ignacio branch, he showed me a interrogation room, state of the art, that he was working on, where people will have the privacy when they take statements. They'll have video and audio recording, similar to what you see on CSI and those TV channels. So we were very impressed, and when I went back and discussed with my manager what all they were doing, we decided that we'll also make a donation, 2 chairs to that room as well. Right? So these are some of the things that we're doing to celebrate the credit union movement.
And for St. Francis Xavier?
St. Francis Xavier Credit Union, exciting things happening. We launched our mortgage, residential mortgage this month. 7.5% for new residential mortgages. And we have a hike in that grab. We have members coming and customers coming. We also have financing vehicles, the Wingles. Once you're a member with us and you have your proceeds of your payroll going with us, you could readily drive out with your vehicle.
100% financing?
Yes. Also, we have social programs given back to our community.
Of course.
Yeah. So this week we went out to the elderly, taking hampers to them.
All right.
Yeah, so it's all about a social program for our members. We also have Nova Optica, a partnership we had with some doctors coming from Mexico to do free eye checkup, and also affordable glasses at $125. So those are programs that we partner with other institutions to provide to our members. Right. So exciting things happening at St. Francis Xavier Craig.
And that's only 2 of the 9.
Everybody else
so we have Rungal Credit Unions on Thursday.
Something is happening.
Get all the party bags.
Local service global reach.
Yeah. Right. So just to finalize the week, tomorrow we're having our quiz competition. We have 22 schools participating, and we involve the young people with us because they are the future. They are the future of tomorrow. They are the leaders of St. Francis tomorrow.
Definitely.
So we educate them with the quiz competition organized through the league, but that's to let them understand why savings is important. And today's society just want loan. I don't have any savings. I just want to draw down a loan. But savings is very important. It's culture, and that is implanted when they're small. So we deal a lot with the young, and the quiz competition brings 22 schools tomorrow at our Civic Center in Corozal, and we will have representation for the national quiz competition. And also Friday is our members street day. So Friday, miembros de St. Francis pueden llegar a la oficina.
And the league, okay. Well, the regional is going on, as you have heard, and that is something very dear to the heart of our affiliates and the league itself, promoting financial literacy. And as a few recently aware, the central bank launched their financial inclusion strategy, which key stakeholders like us play a part in that. And so this is just our little part that we're playing in promoting financial literacy to primary school students. Because it's something very important, very important. You have to learn the concept of saving. It's not just spending. Secondly, we also have our, and so all the winners from the regionals you're hearing about that is going on, comes
at the national quiz.
At a national, and that's supposed to be in November 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And so we also have our convention this Saturday, where we celebrate under the theme Local Service Global Reach. And so that's a theme that is being celebrated globally. And what that simply means is basically we have credit unions in their own individual community doing a whole lot. And every credit union around the world doing something to create this global movement. And celebrating the successes, the impact, how much we have impacted lives over the years. No?
So you can go to your local credit union, and surely there'll be something,
definitely,
some kind of special treat, discount, or new service being launched over the course of this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for coming in and telling us a bit about what you're doing, and best of luck.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
Leading the way as we enter into this fast-growing technological world. Our Belize Bank
And we're back.
We're back. It was an excellent and very interesting morning as we got things started with a quick conversation, actually an hour-long conversation with the juvenile justice system, folks representing that, challenges and progress, and we know exactly what the challenges are, and we continue to see that, but at the same time, you know, they're trying to make progress, but progress comes with everybody buying into it. It takes a village to raise a child.
That's right. And we also want to thank the representatives of the different credit unions who came in today. They are commemorating International Credit Union Day, and so you can check out your local credit union to join into the celebration.
Yep, and finally, one more time, a big happy birthday to Luis Sosa Jr. And it comes from the entire family wishing you all the very best, especially if you're proud daddy right now. Of course, Alyssa and Amber wishing you all the very best on your very, very special day. Thank you there at home. Don't forget KTV Latino will do a repeat tomorrow night, Thursday night, at 8:30 following the newscast. We want for you to check it out. Remember, the voting power is in your hands. It doesn't matter if you're a smart subscriber or a Digicel subscriber. You are able to vote for your favorite contestants. Make sure that you take your vote. But we've got to go. Any questions, any concerns, drop us a line at oye@channel5belize.com.
You can also drop me a line at Marlene_OYE@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYE Belize. And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right, Belize, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open. We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together